Good morning. My name is Claire Clark and I am from Dynham. We are supporting Highlands and Islands Enterprise to deliver this event today. It's great to have you all with us for this NEXUS webinar. A very warm welcome to you all. Before I pass you over to Andrea McCall from HI, I'd just like to spend a minute explaining how we will run today's webinar. As an audience member, you are automatically muted. But we have a couple of ways for you to get actively involved. You can use your question box at any point throughout the webinar and we will pick up as many as we can during the Q&A. You'll also see an icon called the raised hand icon, and during question time, if you've got a mic and you want us to take it off mute so you can connect directly with our speaker, then just click on the icon and we'll get you connected. And finally, we always want to promote knowledge sharing and collaboration, so we do record every session. We will, of course, share the recording after the event so you can watch again or share with anyone else you think might be interested. That's all from me now, so I'll pass you over to Andrea, who will introduce today's speaker. Andrea.
Hello, thank you, Claire, for the introduction. So yes, welcome to our webinar today. So I'm Andrea McCall. I'm from Highlands and Islands Enterprise in Inverness. So I'm based within the Life Sciences team at Highlands and Islands Enterprise, and the NEXUS webinars are one of the things we do to connect people within the life sciences and technology community around the campus here in Inverness, but also wider. And just to give you a bit of background, the NEXUS project is basically a co-working space that is based within Solaster House, one of the buildings on Inverness campus, and it's a co-working suite where businesses co-locate and collaborate. And the webinars is just one way of sharing some of the things they do, but also connect with other businesses, researchers, and just other people active in the sector. And NEXUS is funded by the Inverness and Highlands City Region deal and also by European funding. But that's all really on the background. I just want to go straight into welcoming our speaker today, Darren Gibson from Frontier Science Limited. And Darren and Frontier Science are based in Kincraig, so a little bit further away from Inverness, but they have a very interesting story to tell. And I'm delighted Darren is joining us today, giving up some of his time to tell us a little bit more about the company, the history, the work they do and the work they're planning to do. And interestingly, Frontier Science is working in the clinical trials space, so quite a specific space, and I'm looking forward to finding out more about the company and Darren today. So Darren, if you want to come on now, and I'll actually go and get your slide deck ready as well to share.
Hi everyone, morning, and it's great to be here today, and thank you, Andrea, for that introduction. So if we could have the first slide, please. Sure, thanks. And next slide, thanks very much. So just to give you sort of an outline of what I'll talk about today. So I mentioned a little bit about who we are, a little bit of history, the structure of the organisation, and then I'll spend some time talking through some case studies of work that we've carried out in the clinical trial space. Then outline where we're sort of heading into the future, and then have some time for questions and discussion at the end. Next slide, please. So, who are we? As Andrea said, we're based in Kincraig. We're a not-for-profit charity with expertise in the design, conduct and analysis of clinical trials. And currently we specialise in the data management and the statistical support aspects to deliver excellence in clinical research. But really, at the higher level, it really is how do you use data within a sort of research and clinical space, so the data collation and reporting, all the way through to analysis and then the outputs at the end. So anyone who's involved in any data aspects, I'm sure it's something that we could sort of tailor sort of our work to. So next slide, please. So sort of brief history of FSS, because I'm assuming a lot of people online probably haven't really heard of FSS before. So I thought I'd just go through about why we're actually here. So next slide, please. So FSS really stemmed from the sort of founding director who's recently retired, Eleanor McFadden. So she brought the concept over from Boston in America 20 years ago. And there's an entity in America called Frontier Science, and we have an affiliation with them. They have 3 offices in America with over 250 employees, where we collaborate with them on various projects. And there's also an affiliation with the Frontier office in Greece as well. They have about 10 FTE. And we do projects with all entities sort of in the network to really advance clinical trials. So the next slide, please. So back in 2002, Eleanor started a business in Camusi above, I think, the shop called Mostly Pine, and there was only 3 employees at the time. And it was really to support a clinical trial called HERA, which is one of the case studies which I'll talk about later on. But from that point onwards, really, the organisation has grown arms and legs. So next slide, please. So back in 2006, we moved to where we're physically located now in Kincraig, and it was the old, I think it was the old railway station house or something like that. And back in 2006, sorry, we had about 10 employees, and there was plenty of space. There was even a snooker table in the building at the time, but we've renovated the old part. And the next slide, please. We built this extension in 2012, which connects onto the old part. And in 2012, we had around 19 employees, but now we have around 42, 43 employees. We are a hybrid model of working now. We decided to sort of move into that method because of the pandemic, where everyone was working remote. But when things were starting to open up earlier this year, we started to move into a hybrid model. We have got some employees based down south, and now we have approximately 20 people in the office at any one time. But that sort of hybrid working is working well for us just now. And it'll be something that I believe that we'll probably continue going forward because of the nature of the work we do, which is currently mainly in Europe. So our location, while it is beautiful in Kincraig, we can work remotely and still provide a sort of quality product and service to our customers. Next slide, please. So with the structure, so I started back in January this year, just when Eleanor retired, and I've made a few sort of minor adjustments to the structure already. So we have a board of directors which govern FSS and assist with the strategic direction of the organisation. But we have 5 sort of teams. One sort of business operations, which allows everything else to happen, and 4 more scientific areas. And the one with the star next to the clinical trials development and engagement is a new function which I've brought in to the organisation, and I'll talk about that towards the end. But the other 3 areas, so stats and programming, quality and data management, are sort of 3 core areas, and I'll just discuss a little bit about each area just now. So next slide, please. So like I said, the operations is really sort of our backbone of the organisation. The operations team assist with sort of our finances, contracts. Marketing is a new strength into the sort of area, because recently we haven't been sort of proactive in our marketing, but it is something that we've sort of changed over the last few months. We now have a marketing person who's starting to drive our marketing campaigns to engage greater in the sort of the United Kingdom sort of region, because it's an area that we've been missing, and I'm looking forward to engaging more in the Scottish and the sort of Highlands networks to see how we could facilitate and advance clinical research or research and data research across the Highlands as well. Next slide, please. Our quality team was a sort of combination of two different teams, and in the last month or so of merging together, because the both areas look after our quality aspects, how we sort of produce our documents, the sort of regulations that we have to adhere to in clinical trials. We also do some consultancy work and sort of really drive that compliance aspect across the whole organisation, but also with our external clients as well, where we've got to produce specific documentation for them, and then also be able to assist our sponsors and our clients through a series of audits and inspections from the regulators, who help provide the correct documentation from them for them in that sense as well. Next slide, please. Our data management area was essentially where Frontier started here in Scotland. It is Eleanor's background in data management in the States, and it's an area that we've grown, and because of some trials, it's grown quite extensively recently. And this diagram sort of outlines some of the sort of key areas that this team looks after. It really all starts with the system, with our protocol development aspect. So what do we have to do to ensure that the data is collected correctly and with integrity, and to ensure that we can actually ensure that the reporting aspects and the data is there for efficient analysis. We also help with design of randomization. So many trials have a randomization, so that's ensuring that sort of patients are randomized into two or more aspects or arms of a trial. So we have applications that we could use to assist organisations or entities with randomisation aspects. We help design the case report forms, and that's where sort of the data is collected. But also we sort of build databases and electronic data capturing tools, so data can flow more easily, so there's less handling of data, it's going straight in from source. But we also do that sort of that checking of data, but also sort of helping any randomization aspects and ensure that the data is clean for analysis. So it's a full cycle of a data life cycle that we do use within the data management team. And it's an area that I said that has grown over from the original trial of the HERA trial that we started to some of the larger trials I'll talk about later on. Next slide, please. So our stats and programming, really this was the sort of the backbone of Frontier Science in the States, was a stats centre. This is how Frontier really was formed back in the late 70s in America, and it's a core component for Frontier Science in Scotland. We have probably nearly sort of half our FTE are located within our stats and programming team. And again, they assist with protocol development in partnership obviously with our data team. But they provide the aspects of what analysis, what's the critical scientific questions that need to be answered, what's the hypothesis that we're trying to sort of answer within in the research questions to ensure that the trials produce the outputs and outcomes that are expected or hopefully expected at the end of a trial. We'll also look after sort of the analysis and planning and the reporting aspects. So that's where a lot of our programming comes in, because some of them are tailor-made for specific trials. We have certain standards that we use, and for a lot of the commercial trials that we use, we have a CDISC standard that we adhere to, which is essential for the FDA in the States for seeking approval for new medication. We obviously create tables and figures and various listings, but the analysis of the data is the critical component. We also do sort of the independent data monitoring aspects for trials and our safety reporting. We have been trying to increase our contributions in publications for trials, and whether they're successful or not, the publications are critical to advance scientific knowledge, and that is a core value for us, is to advance scientific knowledge here. We also get involved in various research projects within this team, and I'll discuss a few of them later on. And our main programming language is SAS that we use for this area, but we do have expertise in other languages. It is an area that we're trying to expand as well. Next slide, please. So that said, the one sort of area that I've not mentioned, but I'll talk about sort of more in the future, is the trial development area. But now I just wanted to talk a little bit about case studies, because this really sort of brings what we're doing to life, and really is sort of the why we're here, is to advance that scientific knowledge. But most of our work that we do isn't by ourselves. It is in multiple partnerships. All our studies are very collaborative, whether it's with some other frontier organisations or pharmaceutical companies. But one of our big collaborations has been BIG, which is the Breast International Group based in Europe. And they've been critical to especially some of the studies that we've been working on, because they're a collective of research or a network of research and clinical organisations to really be able to deliver the trials into practice. So I'll just go through 3 or 4 different case studies to outline some of our contributions into these activities. So next slide, please. So like I said, the HERA study was sort of where it really all started, and HERA is a Herceptin adjuvant trial. So that's like so something that's added extra to standard treatment, and at that time Herceptin was, or I'll keep on mentioning Herceptin because it's slightly easier to say than trastuzumab. So Herceptin is something that's probably a lot of people are aware of, so the breast cancer drug. And it was a collaboration to sort of really expand or to explore the HER2+ positive breast cancer. So more associated with the sort of the aggressive breast cancer. And let's say this was our first study. So if you next slide, please. So what was our involvement? So we carried out some of the stats analysis as sort of independent stats centre for the study. We were involved in the sort of the governing committees, but our key component was the data management aspect. And involvement continued all the way through to sort of the follow-up of patients as well. And there was sort of some side research projects. And on the sort of the next slide, it outlines the next slide, sorry, please. Thank you. So there was been sort of fantastic outputs in A-STAR sort of journals. So the first results published in New England Journal of Medicine back in 2005 saw that 1 year of Herceptin was to become standard of care, which was really translational when it's still within, excuse me, which And during the trial, we changed the protocol to allow 50% of the randomised patients to move over to that treatment of choice because the results were so powerful, and it really changed patient care, which is why we're here really, is to advance patient, or to ensure patients have the best care possible and best treatments. And with the Herceptin study, it really was a sort of game changer for breast cancer. The final results were published 5 years ago within sort of Lancet, another high-class journal. So it shows that the results in this first study, the results that are published in high-quality journals, but we can actually change patient care quickly, and it's a testament to the whole team at that time to be involved in the study, and sort of really excitement. And it really was sort of the sort of stepping stone for us to move into sort of bigger and larger studies. Next slide, please. So ALTTO was sort of the next one that came along, and that really was on the back of the HERA study. And this was to look at Herceptin in sort of combination and with or against another drug, lapatinib, in patients with breast cancer, with or without Herceptin. And this was where, again, changes took place during the study, and more amendments. So if you go to the next slide, please. I think I've got, yeah, so the analysis. So here I mentioned sort of 12 protocol amendments, including the sort of recommendation to close an arm of the study because of the inactivity of it. So this is where trials can change during a study, and it doesn't have to be the way they are at word go. We were involved in the stats aspect of this on various committees, and being an independent centre again for data management. So the follow-up of the study is nearly finished now, and sort of the publications, I think, are somewhere on the next slide. Yeah, so there's just a couple of sort of publications that have happened with this study as well, showing that, again, the studies that we're involved in, we do like to sort of publish, even though we're not the clinical centre for the studies. We are a key component for the success of these studies, and the success could be a new drug that gets into market, like Herceptin, or the stopping of treatment. So we take any scientific results as a success. It doesn't have to be a success of a new drug into market. Success, let's say, it could be the stopping of a treatment because there's better treatments out there. Next slide, please. And within ALTTO, there was lots of different side projects that started with the data that was collected. So as you can see, there's topics ranged from the cardiotoxicity to BMI to hormone receptor expression. And we have various roles, different roles to play within research projects. Sometimes we're very active in the analysis of the projects. Sometimes we just provide data to various research groups. But all these projects go through BIG, and we also we help with the coordination of those research projects. So to ensure that the research groups receive the data that is appropriate to receive to answer the research question that they have. Next slide, please. So moving on to another study, and affinity was another study looking at the sort of the dual activity of Herceptin, and we collaborated here on the analysis plan. So really getting involved with how do we actually analyse that data that's coming out of the study. We are a representative on various committees, and within the study specifically, we led the programme and the stats analysis of it. And again, we have more research projects from Affinity. Next slide, please. I think I've got some. Yeah, and so the analysis again were published in New England Journal of Medicine, which is back in 2017, and there was a new drug registered for high-risk tumours within patients, and they were published in the Journal of Cancer. Was it Journal of Cancer Oncology? I can't remember what JCO stands for. I'm sorry for that. But also the European Journal of Cancer recently released another publication just a couple of months ago with further analysis on the data. And there's more follow-up on sort of the patients, which is critical, is continuing, and there'll be more publications and analysis taking place in the next couple of years as well. Next slide, please. So Alexandra, I just wanted to briefly mention this one, because this is a study that has still a few years to go. It's slightly different. It was an open label phase 3 study with Roche as our key partner. And we're really at the sort of early stage of this study, where the sort of first interim analysis just taking place. But again, we're sort of heavily involved with large pharmaceutical companies and large collaborative groups, and the results of the study will be published in the next few years as well. Next study, please. Next slide, sorry. So Olympia is probably the largest study that we've ever worked on. It started back in, I think, 2007, I think it was, and it's still got another 5 years, I think it is, to go before the final follow-up is finished. It was a very complicated study with many amendments to the protocol, in multiple countries, multiple groups being involved in this study. And this has been led by AstraZeneca, and it's to look at the BRCA1 and BRCA2 germline mutations. If you go to the next slide, please. So the interim analysis was published back in last year to look at this, or the patients with high risk HER2 negative breast cancer mutations, and this was sort of funded through the National Cancer Institute and, as I said, AstraZeneca, and this was sort of a significant sort of paper in the field. And the next slide, please. And just recently, I've just sort of circled that. This was back in March. There was a press release from AstraZeneca, and we've put it on our website as well, around the second interim analysis. And this was really to outline sort of the reduction of fatalities by over 30% in patients with this mutation for high-risk breast cancer. So it shows that we work with our sponsors all the time to try and get analysis out into the public domain as quickly as possible, because it does make a huge difference to the sort of patients that are suffering with these diseases. Next slide, please. So as you see, there's lots of studies involved in breast cancer, and that probably has been our major cohort of work. But we've dabbled in other studies before, and I just wanted to mention this one, the No to Pain, which was a small proof of concept evaluation, a pain study that we had with colleagues over in Norway. It was funded sort of through Merck, and it was just that single site for phase 2 studies. If you go to the next slide, please. And so it really was, can this drug be better than sort of the placebo itself? And that was the fundamental question with these smaller phase 2 studies. They're much quicker than something like Olympia, which is years and years of work that goes in there. But the scope of work is equally as diverse, so the planning, randomization, data management, the stats aspect, but also we had sort of trial monitoring and QA work in here. And if you go to the next slide, I think I've got some results. Yeah, so the initial presentation results were prepared, and there was a publication in Pain Medicine in here. So that's really outlined that there wasn't, the sort of findings of this study showed that there was no statistically significant reduction, but there was still still some pain reduction in patients. So further research really needs to sort of happen around this. But there was some promising sort of findings in the study itself. So next slide, please. So where to sort of next for Frontier? Like I said, I came in at the start of January with sort of more of a sort of scientific background, and so I really want to sort of trying to sort of push FSS into a few different areas and to ensure that we're adding value to the whole system here in Scotland in sort of clinical trials, clinical research areas. So next slide, please. So to start with that, one of the sort of first things that we've been doing recently is sort of engaging with the clinical trials units, which are mainly based in academia. As you can see, there's 3 that I've named here in Scotland. There's other ones in Glasgow as well, which has not reached out to them thus far, but that is on the agenda, and a couple in England as well. And this is really to see how we can assist the trials unit and work with them as well to really advance trials, preferably in Scotland, but also throughout the whole UK. So the whole United Kingdom can be a sort of destination for trials activities. While the CTUs are the ones that are listed here anyway are more associated with, or currently associated with, academic studies or the clinician-led studies, and we've got more experience in the commercial world. It's a nice collaboration I think we could forge between the CTUs and ourselves to really make it a sort of holistic trial activities system within Scotland or throughout the whole UK. So I'm really excited how these sort of discussions are going, especially with the ones in Scotland. We're also already working with leads on a few projects, and the Exeter ones, the discussion is going really well as well. So this will be hopefully positive news that will come out of some of these discussions over the forthcoming months that we'll be able to send out to our networks of people saying that this is how we're advancing the trial network. Next slide, please. The other thing I wanted to do was engage more sort of with government entities, and also the Highlands and Islands enterprise, more from a sort of business point of view, but also the sort of the networks that HIA has, and it's been really sort of encouraging the support that I've received so far from HIA about the sort of the networks and information and knowledge that they have, and how we could work even cross-sector as well. I think is an exciting space that we can maybe explore. Likewise, working with NHS and their clinical facilities, I think is something that we're starting to sort of explore, but we need to do it more of. The Scottish Government, so the Chief Scientist Office, looks after clinical trials and research, especially within the NHS. So it's how do we engage with them. We had Kate Forbes up visiting Frontier about a month ago, And for me, it was nice to be able to show Kate around our facility here in Kincraig and explain what we do to her, and so she could have better knowledge of a different type of business in her local constituency. Next slide, please. So like I mentioned at the start, we have a new area, clinical trials development and engagement. And I was able to sort of form this area by combining the sort of quality assurance and technical writing component into our quality team, or quality department, I say. This allowed me to sort of develop and free up some space here within the organisation to really form this new department. And the four blocks are the sort of four key areas. So we want to have more of an innovation research space, both for internal ideas, but also to work with our external customers and to sort of explore ideas and how we could work with them. We do want to become more customer centre, and I think more mainly in the UK, or specifically within Scotland. We want to have more of an outreach to our community, because I've spoken to several people now locally here in Kincraig, Aviemore, Inverness-wise, throughout Scotland, and most people don't really know about FSS. So I think we need to do a bit more engagement in our community to say this is what we do. Most people think we dissect animals and do animal testing here. I think they just see Frontier as a clinical space or trials. So that's obviously what you do, but that's so far from the truth. So we do need to do a lot more engagement there with our community, but also have more. Final block is the strategic project management, where it's been slightly more ad hoc. We want to have more strategic aspect to that, to allow that sort of better engagement with our customers and our clients, to ensure that they have a better experience, so we could learn from those experiences and take them through a journey as efficiently and as effectively as possible. Next slide, please. So one of the areas we've sort of just been exploring over the last couple of months is devices. With a number of device companies in Scotland, this is a great area, I think, that Frontier can explore and see if we could add some value there. I think we can. And this, or the large text dot point, essentially just outlining how the market is significantly growing and will continue to grow over the next few years. And I think it is something that we could really explore with some of the more SMEs in the area, to see how they could acquire some of that market share for themselves. And we're hoping to be able to start one of a project in this space later this year. We've been discussing with a couple of collaborators, and hopefully will be exciting news that we'll be able to announce later this year for our first true device study. So the next slide, please. So my sort of big drivers over the next 6 months is really to outline sort of a strategy for the next 5 years and really raise the profile of FSS, but to engage with not just academia and government, but all aspects of industry. So SMEs, startups, not-for-profit, the large corporates, based here in Scotland, but also internationally as well. I'd like to establish more collaborative partnerships with a whole range of entities, like outlined above, but also to really know to drive our sustainability plans. The sort of the environmental impacts of healthcare globally is significant, and as we're a key component into that whole supply chain of new medicines into practice, we need to play our part in sort of more holistic outlook of being sustainable and trying to reduce our environmental footprint. So it will be something that we're going to be actively exploring, and I think it will be interesting to explore that with other businesses, not just ones within the life science sector, but also further afield, whether it's in the local national park here in Kincraig or in the Inverness and wider Highlands region. Next slide, please. So that's all that I wanted to say today. So if we just go to the next slide, please, Andrea. This is the last slide. So it's really, how can you get support? Really just reach out. If you've got a question or a thought about something around data, and you're looking at how do I analyze that data, how do I report that data or structure that data correctly, we'd be happy to speak to you. So whether you're in the trials area or the research area, it doesn't matter so much. We're open to working with anyone really across the whole region to see if we could provide some value add, or if we can't, we might be able to connect you to someone else. So thanks again for your time this morning, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thanks so much, Darren. That was really interesting. Thanks for that. So yeah, we've had a couple of audience questions through already, but there's still time, so get your questions in the question box and we will get those to Darren. But kicking us off, Darren, first audience question: what is the split between your research and commercial work?
Yeah, sure. So it's mainly commercial work we do just now. I'd say 80% would be commercial, mainly in the phase 2, phase 3 clinical trial space. We have smaller research projects, so I'd say probably 80-20 would be the split. But we're really keen to explore that in partnership with people to see if we could add value to any business in the area.
Okay, great, thank you. Next question: what are the main database systems that you use?
Yeah, so we use a few different databases, and depending on who's on the line, they may or may not have heard of them. They might have heard of REDCap, which was an open source database from the States. It's used a lot in academia in the clinical space now. We use that, whether it's open source version or the commercial version. We'll use also a couple of other commercial databases, Open Clinica and Metadata Rave.
Okay, great, thank you. And another question from someone who's saying, I don't do clinical drug trials, but how can I work with you?
Yeah, sure. So I think if you've got data and you collect data, then we'll be able to probably provide some support or advice. Where the data management in our stats and programming teams, essentially that's what they do. They handle data, and it doesn't matter where that data comes from. We have got obviously a focus and a bent on trials, but we can apply that to sort of any question that somebody wants to sort of answer. And it's something that I think we need to be a bit more vocal about, that we can actually support other areas with sort of the large commercial trials. Okay,
great, thanks, Darren. Question from me, and you might have already covered it when you were going through the case, the trials that you've done already, and not necessarily for frontier science, but just you in general and personally. What is the one project that you're most proud to have worked on, or has been most successful? I suppose that's two separate questions, but yeah, what's the one project you've been most proud to work on?
Me personally, I could maybe give you that answer after maybe get the sort of frontier answer. I'd say there's probably two studies in frontier: the HERA, because it was the first study, and also it really did change clinical practice for people with breast cancer. So I think that's definitely sort of a proud moment for the organisation, but also the Olympia, because it was so complex, or it is so complex. It's a sort of testament to the team here and the way that the professional aspects that they have, that they could deliver a really complex study across multiple sites. Me personally, probably two things as well. One was both while I was in Australia. One was setting up an innovation centre at the university I worked at, where we had no money, and we worked in partnership with our local government and a whole series of industry partners, and we actually won the best practice award at an international conference for the product that we were producing. So that was definitely a sort of proud moment there, but also delivering the Future Health Research and Innovation Fund for the Department of Health in Western Australia, which was a sort of flagship programme for government. It was to sort of bolster the health and medical sector there. So actually to be able to bring that to life was sort of a proud moment for my career as well.
That's some great achievements there, definitely. Thanks, Darren. Okay, another audience question just in. Why are most of your studies around breast cancer? Does it reflect on the trials that are out there globally, or is it just what's happened and what you guys are experts in?
Yeah, sure. So yes, we probably do have an expertise in breast cancer studies. The reason that we've done more breast cancer studies than anything else was the partnership that we have with BIG, the Breast International Group, and obviously deal with breast cancer studies. And we've had a partnership with them since day one. And so because we've produced good outcomes and our outputs, actually, they've always come back to us for more and more work. So we've always had more and more breast cancer studies. But we have had other studies, let's say like the pain study, for a few others, not a lot, let's say. But for me, the breast cancer studies are very, or cancer studies themselves are complex. And so we do have expertise in that, but we can easily work across any area. And we're looking to expand into other health areas as well, whether that's mental health, because of experiences that I've got and also from other colleagues, or cardiovascular, diabetes, etc. So we're looking to expand our portfolio a little bit. We'll probably will still retain more of an oncology flavour to some of the work that we do.
Great, yeah, that all makes sense. I think that's all we have for audience questions, but I'll hand over to Andrea, and I think she's got a question that she'd like to ask you directly.
Okay.
Yes, thanks, Darren. That was really useful to just get an overview, I guess, of all the things you're involved with. Very, very impressive. And I've got a question just around the clinical trials units you mentioned. So you mentioned the units that are based within academic institutions, but you also mentioned the NHS-based units. So just out of curiosity, so what's the difference between those units and between academic and NHS, and what's involved when you work with them? Is there a different kind of approach needed from your perspective to engage with them and work with them?
Yeah, sure. This is my understanding, so apologise if it's not purely correct. So a lot of the NHS, they've got more clinical research facilities. I think that's what their class, it may have changed. This is going back many years ago, my knowledge, and that's mainly that they have beds, so they'll actually see patients in the facilities, and they'll do the various testing on it. The trials units are more, let's say, probably behind the scenes, so they'll provide, similar to us, data management, stat support. They'll help out with ethics applications, and maybe some might do health economics and things like that. So it's more of physical and non-physical, or interaction with patients, and non-interaction is probably the biggest difference. And most of the NHS facilities engage with their local CTU. So I think the one in NHS Highlands do a lot of work with the CTU in Aberdeen, mainly, I think. So that's the main difference. Okay.
No, that's very clear. Thank you. That makes complete sense, obviously. So yeah, I mean, it's because I was wondering about the NHS unit here in Inverness, obviously at the Centre for Health Science, but Aberdeen would be definitely the closest university for them to liaise with. So
yeah,
great,
I've spoken to the Highland the R&D office, so Beth there. So yeah, we're happy to engage with them, and it's the challenge is what we can add of value that they don't have just now, and so that still needs to be further ironed out.
Yes, great, thank you. Claire, is there any other questions?
No, I think that was all the audience questions. So yeah, thanks so much, Darren. That was really interesting, and it was great to see the next steps for the company as well, and really see you know, your vision for going forward and things. So obviously, if anyone's got any other questions after the webinar, then they can get in touch, and we can forward them on to you. But yeah, thank you so much, Darren. That was great.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
I'll just pass over to Andrea now, who'll say the final few words. Over to you, Andrea.
Thanks, Claire. Yeah, so just wanted to thank you again, Darren, for making time today to speak to us and explain all the things you do, and explain some of your future plans as well. Very exciting, and I think that first device trial that you mentioned, that will be quite an exciting step for you and the company, and looking forward to hearing how that will progress. So yeah, before I close the webinar, I just wanted to highlight one other opportunity for you. We haven't actually got any further webinars scheduled just yet. We're obviously taking a little summer break. We'll be back in the autumn with other speakers and other topics, and we're hopefully also going to have a few networking events face-to-face on NEXUS campus, but continue also with virtual webinars. But one thing I wanted to mention is that our Pathfinder program is open for applications just now. So any SME businesses or new startups, entrepreneurs out there across the Highlands and Islands, if you're interested in receiving some support with your business growth, just to both for existing businesses and new businesses, just to get a bit of coaching input and peer support around your journey, what your first customer should be, what your pricing strategy should be, what your investment strategy should be, for example, then please think about applying for the program. It's a free program, and you can see all the information on the website and hi.co.uk/pathfinder. The next application deadline is the 8th of August, but we will be running future cohorts as well. So if that doesn't suit you, just get in touch and let us know you're interested, and we'll keep you informed about future dates. And that's really everything from me. So we look forward to hearing from you. So please get in touch if you've got any feedback, if you want to see any other speakers, any topics covered in future webinars, and our feedback service should pop up straight after the webinar closes for you all. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andrea. That's great. On behalf of Highlands and Islands Enterprise, a big thank you to everyone that came in to join the webinar today. As Andrea mentioned, our post-event survey will pop up straight after this session, so if you can spare a couple of minutes, it'd be great if you could complete that for us. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great day.